Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Can everyone hear me back there? Everyone's well. I mean, it's definitely a tremendous honor to be here. I mean, I have no words to say, but I'm gonna do my best anyways. I just thank God for the privilege of just. I know that this is my grandfather's heart, to have family. He's always a big family man. He always, everything he talked about was just, he invested everything for that who he was for family, loved ones, even just people that were just on the street, And that because I would never cease to amaze me how many people he knew from all different backgrounds, like even famous actors and actresses, the manager of the Yankees, just random people on the street that he would talk about and go on for what seemed like ages, just a incredible deluge of information. And I've been privileged to just grow up with him all these years. And I just counted a huge honor. I feel indebted just to share. I know he can't be here right now. He's in a different country, a better country. But I can be an ambassador right now. I know that he's standing with the Lord right now, with his wife and those who've gone before. And he would not want anything more, I know, to hear that, just to gather together and just celebrate his legacy. And many of you, of course, received these things already, so of course you could just, read these when you get the chance. But, my grandfather didn't grow up with the nicest of circumstances. He was thrown out of his house at a very young age. He would tell me for hours about his childhood, sleeping on fire escapes, sleeping on Coney Island beach. He even would express regret at years ago when he had to steal a pie just to eat. And even in his 90s, he's still thinking about that. And sometimes he would get to talk to me, but it felt like it wasn't even he was talking to me. He was talking to himself, and I'm just sitting there. And he starts to really, really just reflect. And I could tell he's just thinking about me and everyone that he loves. He would talk about how he went to school, growing up until high school, and then he would go to work straight after school every single day, all night, and then during the Great Depression, and all up until he went to New Utrecht High School. And in 1943, he got married to my grandmother, who's the mother of 7 beautiful people in this room, one in heaven, and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And during the war, he went to New Guinea in 1943, and then he had the privilege of waiting ashore with General Douglas MacArthur in October 20th, 1944. And I remember just hearing his stories, of course, of getting lost in the jungle, as if it was just like a normal thing to get lost in the jungle behind enemy territory. And then with his buddies, he just tell it like, oh, okay, yeah. We got lost in the jungle too, behind enemy lines. He told about how he went from island hopping to island hopping, and doing research on the troop movements. I know he was with the 56th. He's with the 56th Fighter Control Squadron, and he wanted nothing more than to fly planes. But his path changed, and they wound up putting him in communications and making him a lineman. So he would spend his time climbing up to set communication wires between bases so that way they can communicate. And so he'd go in with the troops, and the 6th Army Division went with MacArthur to set up communications, take the city of Tacloban, and then go from island to island to island. And he just would fascinate me about these stories, to just climb the trees, to set up these big floodlights in the trees, to shine down on pillboxes that were only 20 feet in front of him. But he told the story of interacting with the Filipino people. And he would say all the time about how the Filipino people were a very beautiful people. He'd talk about the Philippines. It was this wonderful place, very sweet people, down to earth. And I had the privilege of finding out that everything he said was true about November 2012. And someone who's probably watching this camera right now would agree to me. And so one of my favorite stories was he was talking about when he was climbing up a tree one day in the jungle, and then because he wanted to cut out the vegetation to allow the troops to go forwards. And there was one instance when he was shot out of the tree. There's another instance when his leg blew up with something like elephantitis from ants. And just to hear him just talk about this like it's as if it's nothing, that's typified my grandfather, man of steel. And so he served valiantly in the Philippines, and then finally he was scheduled to go on a full assault to Japan at the time, but then the war ended, and thank God he got to go home with full honors and well recognized by his superiors. He even remained in contact with a lot of people that he met at that time, and he would go on to do just anywhere, even like 3 jobs at a time. Whether it's the post office, the NYPD, and I remember he almost had a near-death experience in '77 with a full-on car collision where he could have died at that time, but miraculously he survived even though he flew through the windshield. And as if surviving from something that was not enough, he was told he'd never walk again. And anyone who knows my grandfather knows you never told him no. I see people shake his head. You never told him no, because he would always find a way to prove you wrong. And he did that chutzpah, that whatever he had, that he just a little bit, inch by inch, until he started going around, pushing around stage equipment at CBS News Company, even though he could, by all chances, have died, having flown through a windshield. And back then, if you flew through the windshield of the car in a head-on collision, that was it. Yeah. And he, I never forget, he was always so loved and appreciated wherever he went, even on walking the beat. Everyone just knew him. People would know him when he would call. He just could give a phone call, and people knew him on a voice basis. And I remember just learning about stuff about him all the time. We were walking in Queens, and we were by the area where the '64 World's Fair happened. And it's like a big structure, if anyone knows the structure. It looks like some alien spaceship from some 1950s science fiction video. And I see this big elliptical structure, and I tell him about it. And he's like, and I come to find out, he was the head of security there was a lounge and a venue up there, and he was the head of security up there. I'm like, is there any part of the city that he did not touch? And he just, to try to really absorb everything he said, I felt a lot of times like I was under Niagara Falls trying to catch it with a bucket, But he told me about even just the people just rough around the edge people who would just like, if they found out that I was, say, bothering him, they could have me killed just like that. And he knew these people. Even though he was in the police, they respected him. And I was amazed by how much he was just respected, even by the sorts of people that you would not expect. And I'd say the major themes in all of this, there are 3 major themes that tend to point out at me in growing up with him, is just the whole thing of building, of knowing people, and faithfulness. There was a line in the movie where the character says he used to get 2 educations, one in school and one in the street. And I tell you, I got more than a street education growing up with him. Coming back from school some days, I had no idea whatsoever what I'd walk into. Any situation he believed that he could do, if he wanted to do something, he would do it. And I became the assistant sometimes, come back from school some days. I remember sitting in class, look at the students next to me like, these guys have no clue what I'm going to be doing when I get home. It could be anything from balancing a lamp on my head while he's up on a ladder, that's perched on my Aunt Janice's basement stairs. It could be wrestling with some pipes in the dark on the side of the house, trying to listen to his commands to use a tool I've never used before in my life that I can't even see, to bend a pipe that I can't even see, for hours and hours and hours. And he just like would fall, get up, let's do this again, fall, get up, let's do this again, fall, get up, but all along, and even having this huge metal tool cabinet and helping him remove every single tool from the cabinet and somehow neatly organize them in all the pizza boxes, which were from the pizza party at the school across the street. I always knew what the school was throwing out because it always wound up in our garage. Whether it was an old map from that still showed the USSR, or whether it was like little desks that you felt like you had to like do like this, But it's like amazing though. I realized that he had this mentality of not taking anything for granted. Just nothing was trash to him. He found out ways to use things, and he never had a sense of entitlement. And that's what I learned from him. He learned the value of hard work. Whether it was working as a boy all night after school while not missing one day of school, or whether it was going on the police force and then working at the meat market, helping to turn around the entire place. He developed a system where he knew that the guy was being shortchanged, his manager. So he discovered a way, because he was very good with numbers, and to use that to accurately find out where finance were coming in and going out to bring up the entire company. He did that, and when he was at the police force, he was so good with numbers that he would come up with crime statistics for the entire city, for neighborhoods, and at the time they had the IBM computers. But his superiors trusted his record before they did the IBM, because he would come up with such detailed records of crime statistics in different neighborhoods. He had such pull that if he wanted you to be transferred to, say, another post office or another police precinct, which was almost impossible, he could just call, have it done, and he told me that on multiple occasions, and it would be done. But all in all, he was never a big shot. He was just so humble, down to earth, just smiling, and he built it in many ways. Physically, he built it mentally, he built spiritually, and remember once as you see written here, I remember one particular case where he was hired to wire up a 4-story building in Brooklyn. He worked all day, all night long, and in the morning the guy came back and found the building all completely done. He's like, how did this happen? And if I understood him right, he didn't even charge the full amount. The guy was trying to offer money, and knowing my grandfather, to try to give him money, especially if he wanted just to do you a favor, it was like, don't just let him do you a favor for you. I mean, I was always amazed at hearing his ability just to build kitchens, build anything, all around handyman, pipes, electricity, you name it. He just knew. He just had to do it for himself. He was a faithful member of First Bible Church in Staten Island since 1980. In 75, a group of men, including men of his same caliber, named Pastor Mel Sabaka, came over. They loved Jesus Christ, and they loved Jesus Christ enough to leave everything to come because they wanted to share the love of Christ and the gospel with New Yorkers. And they were told it was an impossible task, because people out west tend to fear New York. They wouldn't even come near here. But they came, and long story short, my grandfather wound up trusting Jesus Christ as his personal savior, and for being the man that I know he is, that was no small thing. Because he was a genuine man, you knew where he stood in anything, and And he helped to build, it was an old warehouse from the 1880s by the side of the railroad tracks. Some people in this room have been to the building. And he worked like no end to build, in the second floor there was nothing, just a oily warehouse, but he insisted to now use his faculties to build, and he built all these rooms that we used as Sunday school rooms. And the guy who was working with him at the time said just to watch him work would make you tired. And they never forgot just his cheerful spirit while working. And many people to this day, owe a lot of honor to have learned from him and just have been around him and my grandmother and over all the years. And they're never the same because of that. And so with that, there are some themes. There are 5 little lessons, including a 6th one, that I saw, and actually I saw it in a passage of Scripture, which is one of my favorite. I'm just going to read it now. And there are 5 points in the passage which directly apply to his life. I'm just going to quickly read over it. This is what gives me hope. You know something's real when you see it. You knew he was real when you only had to spend 5 minutes around him and you knew he was real. And this is all that I hold on to. This comforts me when I think about these precious promises I have. It's like something when you get a rare gem and you take it and you hold it so close to who you are. And I just feel indebted for my grandfather's honor's sake. I know my grandmother would want nothing more if she was here right now for me to read what I'm about to read. So, with all due reverence, I just want to read 1 Corinthians 15:51 through 58. It says, "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible," that's talking about this is just grave clothes. Has a number on it. One day, this is going, if it's not for going up, this is going to the ground too. "For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible," that's this, "shall put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks," I like those but words, "but thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." I just want to add to that one little tiny verse that is a go-to verse. When I'm feeling down, I just want something just to hold on to. I just want to read this small passage. Revelation 21. "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea." And I like this verse. "And God shall wipe all tears away from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne," he's experiencing this right now as we speak, "Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful." And from the passage I read before, there are 5. I was thinking about 5 points which directly apply to my grandfather. One is homecoming. This passage, he had a lot of homecomings in his life. He served valiantly in the Philippines in what was the greatest Allied campaign in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And he came home from that.
Amen.
Many that served with him did not come home, but he came home. He went into the police day after day, serving for 20 years. He came home every time. In 1977, he got into a head-on collision where they thought he was dead. They were attending to everyone else because they thought he was dead already. Guess what? He came home.
He came home.
When it was there was a while ago when about a few years back, he had a very risky surgical procedure done. And we thought that maybe he might not live through it. But then he found out that it was going to be my sister's 16th birthday. Guess what he did?
He came home.
He came home. And you know what?
Thank
He's home.
you. Amen.
He no more Parkinson's disease,
Thank God.
no more falling off of ladders,
Oh, good God.
no more nothing of that.
Has his teeth.
He has his teeth. He has everything that he want and more.
Shoes.
Fresh, special shoes, everything.
He has everything.
And we don't have to worry about that call at 4 a.m.
Yeah,
Nothing.
my eyes are just burning.
And so I rejoice in that. The second, victory and triumph. He experienced a lot of victory in his life. When they liberated the Philippines when he was about 20 feet away from General Douglas MacArthur. If anyone, we used to study history. In 1942, General Douglas MacArthur was kicked out of the Philippines, but he gave a promise, said, "I will return." On October 20th, 1944, with my grandfather following 20 feet behind him, he came ashore from here to right over there by the door, as he described. Remember him describing to me. He said, "I have returned," and then by 1945, the Philippines was completely liberated, and because of that day, the Filipino people still reverence the Americans to this day. And so that was a great victory. He experienced a lot of victories in his life. Very hard fought victories, but he had a lot of victories. You know what? Today he's a victor. The triumph, because the God that he knew triumphed over the grave, made a show of it openly. It's like you ever see a boxer, if you watch not just victory. Victory is, okay, I beat my opponent. To triumph openly, make a show openly is, okay, I beat you, and I'm just making a show of it. Like Muhammad Ali, when he beat you down, but you didn't just lose. Like, it's clear. You just rose up to the top. And I think of the gospel account is that Jesus Christ beat the greatest enemy, sin and death. He just destroyed all the powers of hell, and he transferred in that way to take everyone he loves so much to heaven, to be with him, because that's his heart. Because he is love. He's compassion. And you know what? He's a victor. This is not a defeat. This is a victory. He's more alive than anyone in this room could be. And the third is hard work. First of all, besides the fact that, God gave everything. God gave everything on the cross to give us, to be our life. And because he loved us unto the end. And there's a story about a woman who had an alabaster box. If you will, this represents the dearest thing to you, like ointment. And she broke this over his head. And in the Gospel of Mark, it says she did what he could. She did what she could. And you know what? He did what he could. If there was something that needed to be done, anything, he didn't ask questions. I was always amazed at his ability just to do anything with any tool, anywhere. I knew if he was in his full strength, he could just, he could build a house by himself if he wanted to. I have no doubt about that. Talk about hard worker. I mean, Sometimes I'd wake up at 2 a.m. to hear that hammer going on because he wanted to build an extension to his bathroom. To wake up at 4 a.m. to shovel, to plow the snow. I never doubted that he worked hard for those he loved. And the fourth is unmovable. You know what? We have a saying, stu not, and if he stood for something, he was unmovable on it. You did not budge him. If he set his mind to something, he was going to see it to the end. Anyone who knows talking about him, like when he would do something, he didn't want to do it. I could not tell him no. What I'd have to do is to add and offer my help, because then he makes him think that, because now he also knows that now he's helping us to learn. So it just that incredible character about my grandfather to keep on going, and he was unmovable for his family. I remember also too, just because it comes to my mind now, how when I was in the Philippines and watched a video of how happy and excited he was when my sister came back from boot camp with her army uniform, and just how cheerful and happy he was. And I know it meant a lot to her, so I'm just speaking on her behalf because I know what it meant to her, just. And he if he was happy with something, he showed it, and the last thing here is hope. I'm just gonna be real. I'm no different than anyone in this room. I just want to share heart to heart what's really special to me. But today I have hope. Everyone's looking for hope to cling to. Hope is what gets you going. When you don't see the results right now, but you're looking in the distance, that faith, that hope you're hoping for. You're going to seek, that one day you're going to attain that which you're working towards. I never saw hope when I look into his eyes when he's really talking, and he knew. He always stayed on top of things. He would ask about family all the time. He would ask about my wife Jane, when's she coming, when's she coming, when's she coming. He insisted, when she comes, we want to have a party for her. He had that hope. He knew that she was coming soon. When family members would visit him, he'd be like, when are they coming? When are they coming? When are they coming? He had that hope. He just constantly had that ever-abiding hope. And, I saw that hope in his eyes. On last Tuesday, that was the last day that he was moving. And I'll never forget, we were sitting by his bedside, and he did this. First, he was looking out the window as if he saw something way in the distance. And we're trying to find out, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And then he turns to us. He goes, with a way that only he would do. He goes, as hard as he could, about 7 times, pointing at his chest. And then he gives me that look that I only know. He looks at me, he looks at my mom. He looks at me, he looks at my mom. I knew automatically, even at this last moment, he just cared about his family. Even just a more humorous occasion, I remember we had given him a donut. And at the end, because of the Parkinson's, he couldn't really swallow that well. So he's eating this donut. He starts choking. He starts aspirating, choking, aspirating. But all the while trying to get our attention. We're like, what? What's going on? Can we help you? What's going on? He was concerned about us. Because he wanted to make sure we were going to have the chocolate in the fridge. He wanted the apples, whatever food he had. And here you are aspirating on a donut, and your care about us eating. That I just couldn't get that. That's so. I remember at the bedside, I was talking to God at the bedside, and I remember there's a story where there's a prophet Elijah, and then Elisha asked for a double portion of that grace given to him, and I just sat down at that bedside, and I talked to God as I would and I just asked for God, just give me a double portion of that. I want that. Whatever that was that he had, I want it. I can't lay a finger on it, but I want that, you know. And I know that he would want nothing more than to me to share this with you, you know. I love you all, and also there's one more. I'm just gonna end with one final thought. So there's one more lesson which I learned from my grandfather. Well, actually, he never knew it on earth that he taught me this lesson, but he did. This is his dog tags. Actually, one of them is my Uncle John's. One is his. The other set of dog tags is with my brother, who can't be here right now, so he asked me to stand on his behalf. I know my grandfather would be of great cheer to know that his dog tags have finally returned back to the Philippines. It's the country he liberated on the neck of his grandson, doing a very noble work. I know that, but I want to. This is something very special for me for a very special reason. So it was November 2015, and long story short, through a program at my school, I had the privilege of marching in the Veterans Day Parade. My grandfather at the time was he had just gone into the assisted living place where he was staying. And so, long story short, just as my grandfather got lost on a enemy-occupied island a long time ago, I got disconnected from the group I was supposed to be in. I felt like Forrest Gump in the city, but then I wound up reattaching with a group of people that I was not supposed to be with, a group of seasoned combat veterans. And so here I am in my blazer, my school blazer, and I'm walking shoulder to shoulder with guys who have, just been in the, you name it, everything that they go through, and back. And I felt so out of place. I'm like, this is ridiculous. These people are like cheering at me as if I'm a veteran, and I'm just like walking and the guys, but they were totally cool with it. They were totally cool that I was there, which I appreciated. But I felt so unworthy, and I was thinking to myself, but then I realized I had something special on my neck.
Yes.
The guy who wore this around my neck, around his neck, deserved every single moment to be at that parade. He couldn't be there, because he was. So at that moment, I was walking in his place. He deserved to be there, I didn't. And so I looked to my left, I looked to my right, and then I see these people waving flags, looking at me, and I pictured my grandfather standing right there next to me. And you know what? And then I felt almost as if I was walking on my knees. I felt like all of a sudden I just came up inside. Something just welled up inside of me, and I just looked straight forwards and just kept on right on going. Like, you know what? And there's a spiritual lesson in that, because, I was carrying this is his identity. This is what the last thing that they'll discover should he be killed in combat or whatever happens. And you know what? Today I bear spiritual identity. Through my grandparents' influence, when I was a young child, I trusted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior. And I know that I could see my grandmother rejoicing. I know my grandfather was happy. And you know what? That day, it says, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. It doesn't say, what have you done? It doesn't say, oh, except you, or you're too wicked to be mine, or you look at you. It just says, if any man, when Jesus looked at the thief of the cross, he didn't ask him about his rap sheet. He didn't ask him. He could have been the most wicked, vile man on the face of the planet. He said, today, thou shalt be with me in paradise. So you know what? Years ago, I became his, the one who is life. I'm not that I'm anything better than anyone else, because I'm not, but I became his. And you know what? I bear the spiritual dog tags of Christ because he took it off his son and then he put it on me like this. And on anyone who's and who has received him, and now I belong to him. So when I'm going through life, I don't deserve all these blessings. I don't deserve this heritage. I don't deserve this, but because I belong to him and I bear his name, he treats me as not just a soldier, but a son, a child. And I realized it was because of my grandfather's influence that I learned that lesson. It was a very personal thing, and I just felt I had to share it, eventually. But I know that my grandfather's happy right now. I know he's happy. He loved every single one of you, and if he never met you before, he would love you anyways. I mean this with everything in my heart. I love you all, and I just, from the bottom of my heart, I just thank you all for being here.
Thank you. It was beautiful.